Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, now made up by Disney, Oracle Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it, Legends. Today I have for you some comics, some TCW episodes, and another novel by Karen Traviss. So starting with the comics, we go to the Clone Wars comic run. This is Heroes of the Confederacy arc, Clone Wars issue 10 to 12, of course based off of the TV show The Clone Wars. This one's actually pretty decent, and I think it's the beginning of episode 3 with the title crawl where we have the heroes on both sides. You kind of actually get to see that here. Of course, it's being manipulated by Dooku to make this guy join, or this whole sector join up to fight the Republic. But he's not a bad guy, and so he thinks he's justifiably going against the Republic because of what happens to his father and all that. And it's actually a pretty compelling story, probably better than a good portion of what's actually in TCW. But it was pretty good. Of course, I can't think of time dates at the moment, but anytime you watch any Filoni Clone Wars material, you must always ignore timetables, because Filoni didn't care about continuity, so neither do you have to care about what Filoni says. So anytime a time is mentioned in the Clone Wars, just ignore it. And then in the Clone Wars TV show front, we have the Brainworms arc, basically. I mean, it starts with them going back to Geonosis. There's an episode with them in space doing stuff. There's an episode with them on the surface fighting Geonosians, and then we get into the Brainworm arc. But it's all in the same sector. It's okay. The nice moments in here is with Luminara and stuff, but even still, it's not exactly in line with the EU characters. Barriss is there, even though she's supposed to be the same age as, or around the same age of Anakin. Yet Anakin is now a knight, and she's still an apprentice, which, to be fair, sometimes people develop at different levels, so maybe she just will become a knight before the end of the Clone Wars. But the fact that she's not already is a little weird, considering that Anakin is now a knight. But whatever. You could perhaps just ignore that and pretend that she actually is a knight, but she's on a mission with Barriss, or with Luminara. But you can't really do that, because she calls her Padawan on several occasions, though I guess also Obi-Wan still calls Anakin a Padawan, or not, doesn't call him Padawan, but my Padawan, even when they're both knights. But again, Filoni doesn't care, so he makes it a little weird. That being said, it was okay. I like the conversations about, Luminara being willing to let Barriss go. Not that she doesn't care, but that she's willing to accept that if it comes to that. Whereas Anakin will not. He must find Ahsoka. He must save her. That's good for where he comes to by episode 3, and that's reiterated in the novel we'll be reviewing today. But also, chronologically, I think this is the second time we get to see Anakin really, or I guess the third time, if we're counting the Clone Wars 2003. The third time we've actively seen him, but this time, willfully, fully doing it. Not just he was angry, but he chose, pre-planning, I'm gonna do this, to choke out that, one dude, I don't forget his name, but to interrogate him, he choked him out. That was very in line with his character, and that portion I really enjoyed, to get the information he needs to save his friends, because that's what Anakin would do. But overall, it was okay. Moving on to Clone Wars No Prisoners by Karen Traviss. Again, anytime a timeline is mentioned in this book, ignore it. It's going to say this is a year into the Clone Wars. Ignore it. Because TCW is stupid. Filoni is stupid. So ignore any timetables, if you're going to follow the EU timeline anyway. That being said, this story was brilliant. The main story is kind of whatever, but all the characters in it are wonderful. Callista is in it. For those of you who don't know who Callista is, in post-episode 6 content, we have the Callista unofficial trilogy. It's Children of the Jedi, Darksaber, and Planet of Twilight. And then, from a certain point of view, she's in Fate of the Jedi. But I won't get into that here if you haven't read it. She is, but she isn't. That's all I'll say there. However, in those books, we have kind of a contradiction, or we had, before this book, a contradiction, where Callista talks about the Jedi of old, you know, before the time of Luke Skywalker, where we get to learn about this older sect. But then the prequels came out. The Jedi weren't allowed to get married. They didn't form attachments. So what was Callista on about? Well, this book shows us how there was a separate sect with like a couple thousand Jedi actually that were on this different spectrum where they weren't dark side users, but they allowed attachment, they allowed feelings. Qui-Gon Jinn was actually friends with them. He stayed with the Jedi Order for reasons, you know, don't fully understand. It seems like he would have jived better with with these guys, but perhaps he felt the Force calling him to stay with the main sect. But basically there's, you know, different sects of the Jedi Order. Of course, the one we see in the movies being the most prominent, the most popular one, or this is kind of like a splinter group. But they allow for different views. They allow for attachments. They allow for not giving into your emotions. The thing I've noticed about Karen Traviss, wow, she really does like to harp on the Mandalorians, and I like the Mandalorians, but they're not my favorite thing, so I don't necessarily jive with that. Pretty much all of her points on the Force and the Jedi Order as a whole, at least the prequel Jedi Order, has been stuff that I've been saying before I even read a Karen Traviss novel. Like, she's just saying what I'm thinking out loud. Like, I know I've said this stuff in other videos. I've said this before when just talking philosophically about this stuff. I've talked about it, and it's great to hear it kind of re-uttered in a book. So everything with Callista was absolutely amazing. Of course, we have something else absolutely amazing in this book, which is Gilead Pellaeon. Now, for those of you not well versed in the expanded universe, Pellaeon is a prominent character throughout everything when it comes to Return of the Jedi content. I mean, I think we have some stuff with him during the movie era, with books focused on Mara Jade and stuff, and Tatooine's Ghost, I think he makes an appearance. But his first appearance is in the Timothy Zahn Thrawn trilogy, the original Thrawn trilogy, Heir to the Empire, Dark Forces Rising, The Last Command. This is where he's basically the Watson to Thrawn's Sherlock Holmes. This is a man who's worked for the Republic, worked for the Empire, and is overall a really decent and good man who chose an opposing side, which just humanizes the Empire. Because, and this is another thing with, you know, Filoni kind of just copied, which is by having Admiral Yularen, or whatever the fudge his name is, you retconned him as being the guy from episode 4, but gave him the wrong command structure because he doesn't care about continuity. But anyway, we get to see him in the Republic time with the Clone Wars, and then we'll see him again as a part of the Empire, but still being the same good, decent man that he always is, but just on an opposing side. And then we'll see him again in the Callista trilogy. We see him again in there. We see him again after that fact. We see him in the Thrawn duology, where he is the one to finally go, this empire, my empire, cannot keep fighting the New Republic, and will make the decision to finally initiate peace between what remains of the Empire and the New Republic. And then he would help our heroes in the battle versus the Yusong Vong. And then during the time of the Civil War, with Jacen Solo, now known as Darth Caedus, we'd see the last of him. That's all I'll say there. So he lives a very big, influential, important life. And he is absolutely top 5 best EU characters of all time. So the fact that we get more of him in this book, that we get to experience him at a younger age during the times of the prequels, is phenomenal. And that is why this book has to be one of Karen Travis's best. I don't say it's the best, but it has to be one of the best. Because it ties in so much. It weaves in continuity, fixes contradictions, makes the universe whole. And it's wonderful for it. There's even good moments with Anakin in here. There's good moments with, dare I say it, Ahsoka and Rex in here. This book is so good. If you have never read an EU book, but you're a big fan of TCW, honestly, you might want to start with this. Because if you went from this straight to, I don't know, watching episode 3, watching episode 4, 5, and 6, reading the Thrawn trilogy, and then reading the Callista trilogy, I think you might have a good time. But obviously you're gonna get more out of it if you already read all that stuff. But overall, the main story is nothing to write home about. You'll forget about it after you finish reading it. But the character moments, the stuff it talks about, is all phenomenal, all well worth your time. I think so. I'm gonna end it. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't want spoilers, then it's time for you to get out of here. If you don't care about spoilers, or you're a veteran, then come along as I talk about some of the things that I wrote down about it. I like that the Republic has secret agents. I just thought that was interesting. And having Helena be a lover to Pellaeon was also really interesting. Anakin calls out the Jedi Order in his head when it comes to the fact that Ki-Adi-Mundi has like 5 wives and multiple children, but it's okay for him because species. And I literally said that when I read the comic books with Ki-Adi-Mundi. Remember, I hadn't read this yet. I hadn't read any Karen Traviss book except for Legacy of the Force. And so I just felt very validated in my opinions. And I already talked about how Callisto is part of a separate sect. Wonderful character moments with Gilead is his honesty. When he realizes that the love of his life is in danger, he tells his crew, he's like, hey, I don't want my judgment to be clouded. There is somebody I really care about on this mission, and so that may affect how I see things. So if I do, please call me out on it. And then, not only does Gilead do this, Pellaeon, but literally everybody near the end of the book does it. The clone's appearance. What do I mean by that? Everybody in this book questions, which I never even thought about, how many people are actually doing this? How can Palpatine spin this in his favor? Because I never actually thought about this. People aren't stupid. People don't know how this started. How did this clone army get initiated? Why was it not in the public records? Why did they only recently find out about it? Everything about that is wonderful. Everything they do with Anakin in this is wonderful. The book ends on a pretty depressing note, too. And we all know where everything's heading. We know what episode 3 will be. But it's interesting that there's so many different sects that if only... And that's the thing that even the master of this separate sect of the Jedi Order talks about with Anakin. It's not love or passion that is wrong. Passion and love are good. I'm a Christian. Maybe you're an atheist or whatever, it's fine. I believe in my sky daddy. Da, 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 da. I hate internet atheists because they're so lame. But anger, for instance. Anger can be bad. Depends on the context. Did you just watch your daughter get assaulted? Something worse. Because you would be justifiably, in fact, righteously angry at such an atrocity. Somebody stole your toothbrush. Also, to a lesser extent, a reason to get angry. But there are different contexts for what is acceptable and what is not. So if God, for instance, gets angry, if he's supposed to be the morally righteous, perfect being, then he would have every right to be, anytime he would get angry, it would be righteous, it would be right to be angry in that situation. Right? Like if I see somebody punch a kid in the face, it doesn't matter if that kid is being a butthole. It doesn't matter. If it is a child, you do not hit children. Right? I mean, I'm not talking about like if we're in the middle of a war, that's where things get a lot more, if somebody's trying to shoot at you, I'm not in the army, I can't speak to that. But I'm saying everyday, ordinary citizens, you're walking down the street and some 40-year-old man just decks a 5-year-old girl in the face. Okay? No matter what she did, whether she's being the most annoying 5-year-old on the planet, does not justify punching a 5-year-old girl. So you would be justifiably angry. So this master is telling Anakin, in those instances, it's okay. It's okay to love. In fact, it's right to love. It's not good to be disassociated with all that, to detach from it. It's important that you do. But are you obsessed? Would you be willing, if it came down to it, to let things go? To let Padme go? How far would you be willing to go to save, to protect those that you love? Because there comes a point where it becomes obsessive, which was always Anakin's flaw. It was not being in love with Padme. Luke marries Mara Jade, no issues. Leia marries Han, issues, but she doesn't turn to the dark side. It's not a matter of love. It's a matter of his obsessive, controlling, selfish love that he has for Padme. He never really thinks about what Padme wants, what Padme needs. It's what will happen to him. It's not even a matter of like, oh, what happens to Padme and the kids if she goes? It's what will happen to me. How will I cope without my partner? And that's the issue. We also get a lot with Callista Machines in this book, which is really good because of the first time we technically meet her in release date is in Children of the Jedi, and she's a computer. So important to establish how she's in tune with that in this series, which is good. And my last note is, surprisingly, I'm really shocked by this, a conversation that Ahsoka and Rex have near the end of this book, which is actually very compelling. Overall, guys, that's my thoughts on No Prisoners. Absolutely wonderful book. Absolutely enjoyed it. What do we have next? More TCW. And Secret Wars, which will be fun with the Chiss Jedi. But then after that, we have Clone Wars novels, Stealth and Siege, by Karen Miller. Sorry. I'm getting a heart attack just thinking about it. May the Force be with me as I suffer through that one. May the Force be with all of you. Until next time.